do you still believe the Browns are the favorites to win the North, or you have to readjust your expectations for Cleveland and Todd Monken's first season now that Myles Garrett is no longer in the fray?
I think I got to readjust it a little bit. I mean, I had them winning 9 to 10 games. I bumped it down to 7 to 8 now. That's kind of where I'm at in that thing right there. I mean, obviously, Myles Garrett to me is the only defensive player that's worth 1 or 2 wins on the season, right? So I think that losing him and having to establish a new defense, and I have to add a Jarrett Verse in there and see what he's going to do and hope that offense continues to take a next step. I think now you have to factor that in. So, yes, I've lowered my expectations down, but not to the 5-4 wins like a lot of people. I'm about 7 to 8 wins now.
Not much difference between 5 and 7 in the NFL.
Wins. Jeez.
It's a lot. Big difference. Big difference.
What if we split the difference? What if they win 6? Because I'm on the 5 train. You're on the 7 to 8 train. What if they win 6?
Then I'm going to say they're going to win 8.
I'm trying to find common ground with you.
You're gonna say you gotta win 8 now.
8 is doable for me because I think that I think that they did a really good job of addressing some of the needs. You know, if Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston does give you that spark on the outside, and Isaiah Bond is taking that next step, you know, I think that right there helps the passing attack out. I think that they did a really good job with the offensive line, and a lot of my stock is on Quinshon Judkins this year. I really think that was a guy who was really figuring out the league, and to have no training camp and to have the impact that he had, I think that he's going to take that next step. So to me, I think this team will be heavy on the run game, heavy leaning on Quinshon Judkins, and I just expect him to have a really good year.
You know, Tyvis, looking at a little bit, I guess this is a adjacent story, but we saw you talking about the situation with the supplemental draft. What was your reaction in terms of the supplemental draft when it came out that the league would not have it? And do you think that the league was preemptively kind of putting their flag in the ground saying, hey, before any of the teams even start bidding on this, we're going to take this off the table. We're going to make sure that because we know some of us, we can't control ourselves. We might just throw some picks out there, but we're going to take this off the table.
Nah, actually, I think the NFL did the right thing. I really do, because I think that for so long, you know, Dustin would know, back when we was playing, like the one big rule was no gambling at all. Under no circumstances, you do not gamble. Right to the point where it was like, I ain't going to the casino. I'm scared to gamble. I'm not even going to bet you $20 on something. Like, I'm not betting nothing. Like, that's where we were. And I think the NFL has done a good job, and college sports has done a good job. Like, they said, listen, we'll let you gamble. You just can't gamble on football. You know, in college, you can't gamble on college sports. So I think that they even lenient in that department. The fact that a guy bet on his team, his own team that he was playing on, like, to me, like, that's you can't let that happen. So I think that Brendan Sorsby is the perfect candidate to drop the hammer down, because he's not that good, but he is a guy that maybe particularly some people have slotted as a first-round quarterback. Some people have him not as a first-round quarterback, right? If this guy was potentially the number one pick, I think that the NFL and college would do some things to bend the rules a little bit and try to turn a blind eye. But because he's a guy that's on the fringe, he's the perfect example. Let's drop the hammer down on this guy right here, because it's going to discourage anybody else past him to ever do this. You know, if you're looking, like, if I'm a DB on another team and I thought about gambling, I'm going to think to myself, well, if they did Brendan Sorsby like that, then I know what they're going to do to me, right? So, like, I think he's the perfect fall guy for this to be able to make an example out of, and I think the NFL did a really good job of doing it. It's unfortunate for him, but, I mean, hey, he's going to have to find a way to maybe go to the UFL or something like that. You should utilize some of these leagues to get yourself some tape and to get yourself better, or you can try to do the quarterback coach thing for a whole year. I know a guy by the name of Cardale Jones that does some quarterback scouting or does some development with quarterbacks. If you need his contact information, Brendan Sorsby, holler at me and I can connect you to, for a small fee, of course.
So you just think that Sorsby should have to sit out this year and not be able to play? I mean,
yeah,
you feel like he can play in the league, but next year.
Yeah, but I felt like that even if he went in the supplemental draft this year, I didn't think he would do any team a service this season. I think it would be one of those situations where he needed the red shirt and sit out and see how the NFL is, because I just think bringing a guy in and giving him training camp and say, hey, go win us in the season, like, that's setting the guy up for failure. Like, you know how hard it is to develop a play, learn the playbook, learn the terminology, and you only want to give him 1 month to try to get all that done. Like, that's setting the guy up for failure. So I wasn't a fan of him playing this season anyways. So for him, I think that either you can sit around and get with a quarterback coach and just work on mechanics and stuff like that, or you can go and run a huddle and run an offense and things like that and go to the UFL. Listen, we've seen a handful of guys, get picked up out of the UFL, and if the NFL wants to market the UFL, this is a guy who's perfect for that. This is a guy who's everybody's going to tune in to see what he does. Everybody wants to see the tape, and then we're going to watch this guy go from there to go on to being in the NFL. Now, if you want to sit out of here and go to the draft, I get that as well. From a financial standpoint, you probably could make a lot more money there, but out of sight, out of mind. You're not Jamar Chase. You wasn't putting up Jamar Chase-like numbers before you left. And I know those two play different positions, but you understand what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, he wasn't putting up those type of stats. So to me, if you're out of sight, out of mind, and you're in his situation, you're automatically going to drop in the draft anyway. So you might as well do something. Go to the UFL. If it's not as up to par as the NFL as they say it is, you should go over there and throw for 70 touchdowns and no picks. And I mean, that right there, and you would probably be able to get yourself some money. That's what I'm just saying.
What is the higher level of football? I truly don't know. Would it be UFL or would it be CFL? I was thinking you'd go to CFL.
What if the biggest shift in Cleveland right now is not that expectations changed, but that the identity of this team is changing with them? Because that is exactly what this cut is really saying. Losing Myles Garrett forced everybody to look at the Browns differently. In the clip, the expectation drops from a division-winning ceiling down to more of a 7 to 8 win team, and that makes sense when you lose a defensive force who could swing games almost by himself. But the most interesting part is what comes next. The conversation immediately turns toward the offense, the young weapons, the run game, and the idea that this team may now have to win with growth, balance, and development instead of fear alone. And honestly, that is where this becomes exciting for Browns fans, because even in that more cautious projection, there is still real optimism about what this offense can become. The cut points to young pieces like Casey Concepcion, Denzel Boston, and Isaiah Bond, and it leans into the belief that the offensive line and ground game can help stabilize everything. That matters because if the Browns are going to build something more sustainable in Todd Monken's first season, it is going to come from structure. It is going to come from an offense that can protect the quarterback, create manageable situations, and let the young skill players grow into real weapons instead of forcing them to carry too much too soon. And that is exactly why a Nick Chubb reunion makes so much sense to me. First, the facts matter here. Chubb signed a 1-year deal with Houston in 2025, and NFL.com's 2026 offseason departures list included him among the Texans' notable departures, meaning he was back on the market this offseason. Houston's official 2025 transaction notice also confirms that 1-year structure, so this is not about fantasy nostalgia with a player locked away somewhere. This is about the possibility of Cleveland bringing back one of the most respected players in franchise history at a moment when the offense needs toughness, leadership, and identity. Now, is this about getting the 2020 version of Nick Chubb back? No, that is not the point. The point is that Nick Chubb still brings value that this young offense badly needs. He brings patience, professionalism, violent downhill running, and instant credibility in the locker room. He brings the kind of presence that helps settle a young offense. And when you're talking about a quarterback room that still has uncertainty and a bunch of young weapons learning how to play winning NFL football together, that matters. A veteran runner like Chubb does not just help on first down. He helps the mood of the offense. He helps the standard. He helps the physical tone of the team. And this is where it gets especially interesting for Shedeur Sanders, even if the cut is not directly centered on him. A young quarterback benefits enormously from a backfield that can calm games down. if Shedeur is part of this offense in a meaningful way, whether early or later, having Nick Chubb back would make his life easier. It would keep the offense on schedule. It would help in play action. It would help in short yardage. It would make defenses respect the run, and that opens cleaner windows for a young passer. That is how you help a quarterback without asking him to be Superman. You give him rhythm, you give him support, you give him a real running game with a real identity. And emotionally, Browns fans already know what Chubb means. He's not just another veteran name. He's one of the faces of toughness in modern Browns football. Bringing him back now in a season where the team is trying to reset its identity after losing Garrett would send a message. It would say this team still cares about physical football. It would say the offense is not going to be built only on hope. It would say the Browns want young talent, yes, but they also want grown man stability in the room. So my take is simple, Dawg Pound. This cut is telling us the Browns know the formula has to change. Without Myles Garrett, the offense has to carry more responsibility. That means more from the line, more from the young receivers, more from the run game, and more from the quarterback. And if Cleveland really wants to build the smartest version of that offense, bringing Nick Chubb back would be one of the clearest culture and football moves they could make. He would help the run game, help the locker room, help the young playmakers, and help any quarterback who lines up behind center. Tell me in the comments, if the Browns want this new offense to have real identity, should Nick Chubb be part of it again?